The following audio recording has been designed for learning purposes only. Do not share, distribute, or provide any type of copies, or this audio lesson will not be made available to you. Good luck with today's lesson.
So far on anything we've discussed, we're going to finish up consumer law and stuff. Is there any questions on anything so far that we've been covering? The suretyship, the guarantees, what we've kind of started covering on our consumer protection. Making sure everybody who's in here got their stuff. Okay. Then what we'll do is we'll finish up our consumer protection, and then from there we'll go into secure transaction, and we'll see on where we're at there. If for some reason we have some time, maybe we'll start going over some of these questions that you guys have. So if you guys are starting to look at, and if not, I know for sure next class I'll make sure we do this. So if you haven't started it, I would recommend that you start working on them at least. That way it's not me giving you guys all just the answers. So you guys can figure out what's helping, what's not helping, or if you have any questions on that, you guys can ask. So let's pick up, we were up to credit cards. And our credit cards are going to be fully regulated by our federal government with the fees charged. The solicitation, the unauthorizing, so we'll talk about what's an unauthorized use and unauthorized purpose when somebody's using your credit card. Our credit card companies, what they'll do is they are not allowed to send unsolicited cards to people anymore. Remember back in the, I shouldn't say because I never got lucky to get this, but back in the day, I do know they used to send the credit cards already saying that what? Here's a credit card, you're approved, and here's what it is, and all you had to do is call and sign. They don't do that anymore. A lot of times you'll get the notices in the mail that say you're what? You're pre-approved, would you like to do this? Then you fill it out and send it in. Just keep in the back of your mind, any of that stuff that you don't want, that you are getting on those, you really should be like ripping those out, shredding it, whatever, because people can pick through your what?
Mail,
Your garbage, your mail, and they can take those. So if all of a sudden you just get that envelope that says pre-approved on the outside, and then you just toss the whole envelope out, someone could pick that up and do what? Oh, I'll fill it out. I'll change the address, have it sent where? Here, but your name's on it, and then they start what? You'd never know you were getting billed for something because they're taking care of it, but then they're using your name. So just one thing, make sure that you shred those things. Now, I said you couldn't solicit those under 21 unless that applicant happened to have a written permission for it, they did the application, and they also had a co-signers. Now, again, a lot of places will say, okay, once you're 18, they'll also give you credit cards and stuff like that because they won't ask for the co-signer because we said the age of majority is what? 18. And as long as you're able to pay, they might look at it. Sometimes you won't get credit cards for certain places. You'll get it when you're you'll get it, but they'll be small amounts. You know, like the most you can charge is $500. They're not going to give you like $10,000 right off the bat because they want to make sure you're going to what? Pay it back. That type of thing there. The other thing, credit card companies, they have to disclose their late fee amounts as well as the impact of late payments. So if you don't pay us on time, that monthly fee, then you might be charged $35 for that late payment fee. Or if you don't pay us on time, maybe your interest rate might be what? Oh, you failed to pay after so many, we're going to raise your rate then from, say, 13%, where it might be then raised to 29%. They have to give you that information, though, so that you are aware of that there when you are doing that. When the consumer pays more on the credit card, the company's going to have to apply the extra amount towards whatever is the higher interest one. Okay? So if they have more than one account on the thing, they should be applying it to the higher interest portion on your payment. Because we don't want you paying what? Oh, well, we'll put it towards the 0%er, but this one's due. A lot of times what they'll do too is what's the first one? Due because you might have this one's due. Well, yeah, it's like 30% interest, but you might have a balance transfer on there for 0% interest, but you might have what? 10 months to pay that one. Well, they can't sit here and pay that one off and let this one accrue what? All the interest because that one's not till October, till no interest. Do you know what I mean? So they say you must be paying those off first and applying it there. Consumers also have to be informed about transfer fees, potential changes in the APR once the transfer fee has changed, okay, has occurred. Collection of credit contracts are fully regulated along with the reporting of credit records of consumers. Okay, a lot of times too when your credit cards are due, they will tell you it is due by 5 o'clock on that day. And this is where we kind of get into that general rule when you're paying your bill. generally it's deemed paid when you put it in the mailbox on the day it's due. However, if that bill says it must be received by 5 o'clock, it does not mean you can put what in the mail that day? The payment, you know what I mean? You're gonna have to pay it beforehand. Let's talk about unauthorized use and unauthorized purpose, because there is a distinction between our unauthorized use and our unauthorized purpose. So if one used a credit card of another without the person's permission, you have an unauthorized use. Now, I don't know about many of you, I was very fortunate sometimes where my mom would always say to me around book time, here's my credit card, go buy your what? Books. Because she would help me and pay for them and stuff, but she'd give me the credit card. And I'd say, well, what happens if they want me to sign? You know, because she never gave me a letter saying that my daughter has permission to use my card. She would just give me the card and she'd always say, sign my name. You know, again, I had an authorized what though? Use. Because she gave me permission to do this. If she didn't give me permission to do it, and let's say I just went and took mom's credit card now and went and bought my books, that would be an unauthorized use because she never gave me permission to do that. Okay? This limits the card owner's liability to a maximum of $50 if one uses the card without, if you had like that unauthorized use. Do you know what I mean? That unauthorized that they do it. We're going to limit you to $50 on that max. But in order to have that limit liability to $50, the credit card issuer has to establish that the credit card was accepted card, okay? If the credit card company wants to recover from you, because we're going to limit you if somebody did that unauthorized use. But they're going to have to establish that you had an accepted credit card, that the issuer gave the holder adequate notice of possible liability in the case, that the letter, the issuer furnished the holder with notification means in the event of the loss or theft. So basically when you lose your card, you really do want to let them know you've lost your card. So at least things can get put in place there. Also, the issuer provided by method which the user of the credit card could be identified as a person authorized to use it, and the unauthorized use had occurred or might have occurred as a result of loss, theft, or some other event. You know, if I gave somebody though the use to use my card, so let's say I tell Tanisha, here's my credit card. You can go use it and go shopping, right? I can't then turn around and call them and say, hello, somebody used my card, but they didn't have permission. You know, because then if they find out who did it, she's probably going to go, what do you mean? I had permission to do it. She gave me permission to do it, you know, and all that. So then they might be able to recover because then of that thing there. Unauthorized purpose, we said, is different than unauthorized use. Because the unauthorized use was you didn't have the permission to use that person's card, but you used it anyways. The unauthorized purpose might be that I had the permission to use the card. So mom gave me the card, right, to go get the books. I go to purchase my books for school. I decide after I purchase the books that she gave me the use that I could use it for, that, you know, I really could use some new clothes. I'm just going to take you're shaking your head like, all right, let's go. You know, I'm going to go get some new clothes, and I'm just going to take mom's credit card now and do what? Go shopping and purchase clothes. Did I have the authorized use to purchase the books? Yes, right? But did I have the authorized use to go purchase the clothes? No, so that was an unauthorized purpose. So I may have had the authorized use to go use this, right? But I didn't have that to do the purpose where I had used the card for a specific purpose, and then I go and purchase something else that wasn't that purpose. Do you get where we're going? Like, yes, you can get it for the books, but I never gave it to go get the clothes. That was an unauthorized purpose there. People have purchased gift cards. So let's talk about the gift cards. When you guys get your little gift cards, those are no longer supposed to have expiration dates, because what used to happen in the past is they used to have this thing that you would have an expiration date and they would expire. And then what they were doing though is you'd get somebody a gift card, and then all of a sudden it would start eating at the gift card. So if you didn't use it, say in 3 months, if you get in the gift card, it would start what? Deducting an amount. And someone may have given you a gift card of $25, and then you found out it was gone by the time you went to use it because you didn't use it within that time. They can't do that anymore on that. And what will happen here is if they're going to do it, usually what happens is it can no longer have an expiration date earlier than 5 years from the date that you purchased it, that it was issued, and there must be a disclosure about that expiration date there. The Card Act also regulates the amount of declining fees on the gift cards. And it's funny because I do have a confession. I thought about this the other day when I was looking over my notes. I thought, I have an unused Macy's gift card of $50 that I always forget about that's sitting in my purse. I'll be honest, I really do, because I don't go shopping too often, and then when I go shopping, half the time it's never in my purse, I feel like. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, that card's about 7 years old. I hope they'll still take it. I mean, it's never been used. I have it. I even have the little receipt that the person gave me when they purchased it, which is starting to disappear. Because you know how that starts fading? And I'm like, I'm going to have to go shopping soon and just find something from there, to get. So it is one of those things there. Creditors. Let's talk about when you are going for applications and you're trying to get credit rating. The creditors, when you fill out your application, they cannot discriminate you. And what happens here is you can't be discriminated on the basis of race, sex, origin, all those little discrimination elements there. They, however, may choose not to give you credit. Like, say I go and I try to get a loan and they tell me, no, you don't qualify for the loan. If they tell me I don't qualify it because I'm a woman, there's going to be an issue there. Do you get where we're going? Because that's discriminating and saying, well, women can't make money and they can't pay their stuff off. No. Or maybe it's because of my race or something like that. However, they can decline me to give me credit based on what? My credit score or something like that, because maybe I'm a bad bet. Maybe I'm somebody who never pays anything back. So they might in their letter say that, no, we're not giving you this because of your credit, you're not there. But if all of a sudden, I can ask for an explanation for the refusal to give me credit, but again, if they give it because of any of those reasons that could be discriminatory, we could have an issue there. All right. What else? What do we want to talk about? Improper collection methods, creditors. Okay, they can't use these improper collection methods. So if you happen to hire an agency, you're the creditor, I hire a third party to go and collect money from you, because let's just say James is not paying me, right? And all of a sudden I hire Abby to be my person to go collect it. She's going to have certain things that she's going to have to follow, because she can't also hound James for me, right? And also, if she does something wrong in violation of that because she's trying to collect the money on my behalf, I also could be liable because I what? Hired her to try and get my money. So when we're getting this, I could be liable for damages to the debtor for that collector's unlawful conduct. We do have the Fair Debt Collection Act, and what that does is it governs improper practices of third-party collections of debts that happen to be incurred, primarily for our personal, family, or household purposes. The collectors cannot misrepresent themselves. You also cannot harass people, like you can't be calling after certain hours or sending, 20, 30 and stuff like that. You can't threaten lawsuits when in fact you never intend to file a lawsuit. That could be misconduct. So if I called up James and I said, you know what, if you don't pay me, I'm going to sue you. Well, I'm threatening him, right? But maybe I had never any intention of ever suing him. Again, that could be that improper conduct that violates that act. So we get into those type of things there. Fair Credit Reporting Act. It does apply to consumer credit and protects consumers from various abuses that can arise as borrowers, the debtor, the buyer's information is recorded, revealed. The credit reporting agencies cannot disclose any information from you that they don't have a legal right to disclose to anybody, okay? That they don't have a legitimate use for it. They can't sit here and tell everybody, oh yeah, so-and-so, they have this. No. And also what happens here is credit bureaus obtain their information by people maybe such as neighbors. If they get this, they have to be careful, because that could be what? False information. You can't trust what the neighbor says necessarily. If all of a sudden I say, oh my gosh, Rachel, yeah, you don't want to, give her money and stuff as a creditor because she's terrible. They're going to base it off me. That could be totally false. So they could be subject to penalty there. And also that information is inadmissible if we're even going to go, because it's hearsay evidence. It's coming from that other party. So if I'm the neighbor, it's going to be hearsay there. More consumer protection laws. They are evolving with the expansion of things such as the protection afforded consumers, including blue sky laws, which is your security laws. You also have real estate sales, franchises sales, and automobile lemon laws. The automobile lemon laws, usually what happens is a lot of states have that. So what if you purchase a new car, and let's say you have an issue with the car, you take it back, and you ask them to fix it, they say they fixed it, all of a sudden you get it back, you still have an issue with it, you take it back again, they say they fixed it, you get it back, you have an issue again. What they'll do is the lemon law says after so many attempts, if you still have that issue, you can sometimes seek a refund, replacement, those things, the damages and stuff there. So you're allowed, because it's a lemon. You know, you got something and it should have been good, and it's funny, it's a lemon type thing there. Any questions on the consumer area in there? Then what we're going to do is we'll move over then to our secured transactions. So when we talk about secured transactions, I guess some of the things we should kind of focus on first is, before we even say what is a secure transaction, like who are the parties in a secure transaction? And if you're trying to figure out chapter, we're up to chapter 33. So who are the parties in a secure transaction? Usually we'll have who? The seller, the lender, right? When a seller or lender is owed money, the party is going to be known as the creditor. So you can kind of see these terms kind of play out throughout, because you'll have your creditor. So there's somebody who's lending you something, loaning you I don't want to say loaning, but lending, yeah, I guess loaning, borrowing you money, and you might give something in place of the money that if you don't pay the money back, they get to keep the collateral, right? This is what we're talking about, secure transactions. We'll get there. Who's the other party then, the creditor? Well, the other side is going to be who then? The borrower, the debtor. So it kind of goes along the lines of, you start going, well, is it a suretyship sometimes do I have? Do I have a secure transaction? Do you get where we're going? Because the suretyships is you're agreeing to pay what? The debt of another. Somebody's probably a creditor, and you're agreeing to pay the debt of somebody else. And this is where the debtor, you kind of get into, hey, did you have some sort of secure transaction going on with the creditor? So what is a secure transaction? It's personal property is given to the creditor. And what it does is you're giving it to them as maybe to secure a loan. You're giving them some sort of property as collateral. The chattel, right? Something. And what happens then is when we're talking about that secure transaction, because you give that creditor security interest in the property, what you have to think of it is think of that security as being, the security interest as being a lien that the creditor has. Because if you end up not paying, and I told them here, you can have my ring as collateral, if I don't pay on that loan, what do they get to keep then? The ring, because that was their collateral. When we talk about secure transactions, it's generally regulated by Article 9 of UCC. So it is a different article there. Now, when we are talking, I said think of it as a loan. You are pledging this collateral. And I said you get to keep it. When you have this collateral, though, that somebody gave it to you in exchange for something, they've secured this interest in you. You do have a duty of reasonable care to make sure nothing happens to what? The ring. Because you're kind of holding on to it, right? Because eventually when they pay you back, you're going to have to give what back? The ring, right?
So they don't get to sell the thing?
Huh?
Like they don't get to sell the ring and be like, okay, your debt's fine, we're just going to keep this ring?
If you paid off the collateral, because you're giving them the collateral, it's a security interest.
Uh-huh.
So if I borrowed you $10,000 and you gave me the ring, I really have a duty of care to hold on to the ring, reasonable care, because if you're paying me every month like you're supposed to, I can't outright sell the ring on you yet.
Okay.
Because that was the collateral for what? The transaction. Do you see where we're going? So what happens is once you pay it off, I'm going to eventually give you back your collateral. If you gave me collateral.
Yeah.
Sometimes, let me flip it, it could be my house.
Mhm.
I'm using my collateral of my house for a loan, and then what happens? I mean, you don't physically have my house, but if I don't pay, then you get what? You get the property. You know, so you do get into those. So keep that in the mind. You do have to use reasonable care in preserving that property, you know, especially if you have like the ring or whatever it is in your possession, or the car, or whatever they're giving you in that possession there. If you fail to use reasonable care, then the creditor could be liable for damages. There is a special type of secure transaction that I want to mention, and this is the PMISIs. Okay? And this is actually your purchase money security interest. So a lot of times you see it abbreviated PMSI. This exists when the creditor finances the purchase or a third party advances the funds for the purchase of property that becomes your collateral. Okay, so let's talk about what is a security interest then. Our security interest is created when we have an agreement, and the creditor gives value, which can be a contemporaneous exchange or given previously in the form of a loan. And the debtor then has rights in that collateral. So our security interest will be an agreement. The creditor is going to give value. So let's do this. I might flip over to blue in a second up here. You have an agreement. We said they gave what? Value. And we said the debtor had an interest in collateral. Okay, so we know this there. The secured agreement, when we are talking about the secured agreement, what it has to do is it's going to have to identify for you the parties. So here we'll say, okay, who are our parties then? Who is the creditor? Who is the debtor? We want to identify that information. Who are our parties that we are talking about? If I'm the creditor and Brad happens to be the debtor, we're going to identify us, right? So Jennifer, creditor, blah, 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 whatever is my company. Brad is my debtor. We are also going to have a statement of intention to create the security interest. Okay. We'll include that in the agreement. We will describe the debt or the performance that is secured. It'll be authenticated by the debtor. So when we say authenticated by the debtor, most likely he has what? Signed it, acknowledged it, right? And we will identify a description of the collateral. So those are kind of like your elements there. So authenticated and described collateral. So I wouldn't just write a ring. Do you get where we're going? If I had the security interest and somebody gave me a ring as collateral, I'm going to want to describe the ring, 10 carat, maybe even the description of it, whatever you get from that dealer, so that way it's described out. Because if I just said he gave me a ring, he may have gave me a $10,000, 5 carat diamond ring or something, pristine cut, probably worth more than $10,000 at that point. But you get where we're going, size, where all of a sudden I'll go, no, that's not the ring he gave me. He gave me this little opal. Or that $2 ring that we got in the consumer product. Remember emerald that we get. So you are going to want to describe that so people know. Any questions so far on that? The collateral can also be after acquired property, okay? Except in the case when we have our consumer transactions, when the limit for after acquired property is actually 10 days from the time of the security agreement. Collateral can also cover proceeds. So any proceeds that you might get from the sale of the collateral. Now, we previously mentioned that the debtor actually gave collateral in the secured transaction. So what, though, is collateral? Because I've kind of been saying things, and I've kind of alluded to things like the rings. The basic type of collaterals are going to be things such as the following. It can be consumer goods that are used primarily for personal, family, or household use. Bless you, by the way. So it could be those consumer goods that are generally used for personal, family, or household use. Personal, family, or household use. Equipment that is used in business operations. So you can see there's a bunch of things we might use as our collateral. Like, hey, if I don't pay you back, you get my equipment that I use in my business. My printing press, whatever it is, whatever type of business I'm at. I'm trying to think of some of the main business ones. Right now I think of the factory line going on. But, any of that equipment there. It can be inventory, which are goods used primarily for resale. We could use our farm products. That could include our livestock, our crops. These are all things we can use as collateral, okay, and supplies. We can use also intangibles. And when we're talking about intangibles here, we're kind of talking about your patents, your account receivables, right? Your accounts, your patents, your receivables. Any other intangible personal property you could use as collateral. So, I mean, it's not just thinking when you think of intangibles, a lot of times you guys might think what? The patent, trademarks, do you get where I'm going, copyrights? Yeah, we're talking about any of those, but also like your account receivables. Yeah, how you have that stuff when you get into accounting and those things. Now, why the existence of our security interest provides the creditor with a right of repossession. What happens? Perfection will provide the creditors with priority rights. Because what happens is you're going to do this. What if all of a sudden I borrow Brad $10,000? He has interest in a ring. He secures the ring, uses the ring as his secured transaction, right? The collateral. But then let's say he also enters into an agreement with Tanisha, and he uses the ring also for what? Collateral. We may not know that he's doing that with what? Each of us, right? And that's where sometimes perfection comes in, because it becomes who perfected first, maybe.
When you say perfected, like, what do you mean?
It provides creditor with priority provisions. Like, did you perfect it? And we're going to get into it in a minute.
Okay.
Perfection. And then if you still have questions, ask me. But do you get where we're going? Because sometimes he might use that same collateral with various people. And then all of a sudden, he could have also used it with you, and now there's three of us. And we don't know who gets it. Because what if he doesn't pay all three of us? You're probably going to want the ring, I'm probably going to want the ring, and you're probably going to want the ring.
We should have rethought giving this guy credit in the first place.
Cut the ring in 3 parts.
What if it's the oval, or not the oval, the perfect circle?
Gotta cut it, figure it out.
Who gets the tip, who gets the top, and who gets the middle? All right? And hope if we do the other way, it gets there. So when we talk about this, though, it's going to give you a priority, because it is the attachment of that security interest that allows the secured party to take the collateral as collection for the debt. Okay, the debtor's default. Perfection now can occur various ways. So this one's not my good one. I thought I tossed that one aside, so it's got to be this one. Okay. So how do we get perfection? What are the various ways that we can do perfection? We can do it by possession. See, because here's the thing. If he gave me the ring first, bless you.
Thank you.
Who has the ring? I do. But now what if all of a sudden he gave it, also offered it to Tanisha, but I'm the one who actually has it? I may be the first to perfect it because I actually have what? Possession of the collateral. Another way we could do it is by automatic perfection or filing of a finance statement. Okay. So these are different ways that we can actually do perfection. And we're going to talk about each of those. So first we said perfection can occur by possession, by the creditor retaining possession of it, of that collateral. Once the creditor surrenders the collateral, the creditor will lose perfection. So let's say I have the collateral, I have the ring, I give it back to Brad. I lose it now, right? Because I've given it back to you. There, I'm no longer going to have that perfection and stuff because I gave it back to him. Because I no longer am in possession of it. Which usually I wouldn't give it back unless he what? Paid. So we get into those type of things. Perfection, I said, could also be automatic, such as in consumer purchases. That's where we said, remember I said PMSIs? Those are automatic perfections. Purchase money security interest. Because if I'm going to borrow, like, I shouldn't say borrow, but let's say you purchase the refrigerator and it's on payments, I automatically get it I'm automatically perfected. That's a PMSI. I get it right at that moment when you're purchasing because I'm giving you there. Now all of a sudden, we could have Emma. She purchases that washing machine and dryer from me. I have the automatic perfected interest, but now maybe she uses that as collateral. Do you see where we're going? Where she says to Bella, oh, here, I'll use my washer and dryer as collateral for you to borrow me $5,000. And if I don't pay back, you get what? That. Well, you don't have possession of it, but I have what? The PMSI. So yes, you might be a creditor too, but the question is who perfects, who has perfection first. Because she still got the washer and dryer where? At her house. But if she doesn't pay, she can go take them because it's part of her collateral there. Okay, and again, if we have the automatic ones, those are perfected from the moment it attaches. What happens with the automatic perfection? It decreases the amount of paperwork you really have to have, is what it's going to do. So the sellers wouldn't need to file as much paperwork there. Most states will have a system for perfection of security interest in automobiles through notation on the vehicle registrations. Now, perfection, we said, can also occur via control. So, for example, my page numbers are going to be off there. I didn't note my page numbers because that's my older page number book, I think. Let me flip it. I know, we have it with our bank. So here you have the credit union, perfection by control on page 650. I just wanted to make sure I had the right page. So there you had that credit union. What did they do? They secured a loan with the credit union. The debtor did, the member, by giving the creditor union a security interest in their savings account. That's by control. To kind of give you a feel, like, here, I'm going to give you what? My account, my savings account, and all the money in there. Kind of, that's what I'm going to use as my security. Okay. They have control over the account. It's perfected by their ability to dictate what that member can and cannot do then with the funds. So that's your example of showing you by control. There's one way there. A security interest can also be perfected through, we said, the filing of a finance statement. That was my down one here. So when we have a finance statement, what does it need to include? Because it's a finance statement. So what should it have? It should have a description of what? Our collateral, right? We want that description of the collateral. We want the signature of the debtor. We also want the address of the secured party and the debtor. So we'll detail that out. And I'm just going to write address of parties, if that's okay. But what I'm talking here when I put parties, it's address of your debtor, address of your secured creditor. So on that financing statement, when you file this, it's going to have all this information. And again, why do we want the description of whatever it is? Because you don't want to just say a ring or a car. You know, because what if I have you guys can pick any car you want, like a Nova or something, right? An older Nova. But say I also own a Porsche. You're probably going to say, no, it was the Porsche we're talking about, not the Nova. I'm going to be, no, it was the Nova. That's why you're going to want a description of whatever we're talking about there. Any questions so far? When you have the financing statement, it is filed with the appropriate location. When you go and file it in the appropriate location, you now then have perfection, okay, of the security interest. Like I said, these are governed by Article 9. They have revised Article 9 numerous times. Most people have, actually pretty much everyone has accepted it. And when they did the revisions, they also included electronic filing. Okay. So it is possible for you to do electronic filing as the debtor, okay, when the debtor authorizes it. Even though the debtor signature is not going to be required there, the debtor must either authenticate the security agreement, agree to allow that financing statement to be filed on the collateral, or acquire the collateral subject to the security interest. If we look at figure, let me find that one. I will find it somewhere. I'll find it for you guys. That's our parties, our collateral. We'll get to security there. Okay. Oh, they don't have that. All right. So we'll come back to the examples then when I get to the thing. How do we lose our perfection though? Because this is how we said you get perfection, possession, automatic perfection, filing, and finance statement. How do we lose this? Well, what's the first thing I said you could do? You give me the ring. I give it what? Back. Once I give it back, I'm losing what? My perfection, right? By giving up the possession of what I had, the collateral, by turning it back to you, I lose, surrendering it. I can also lose perfection through a lapse of time. So it didn't necessarily be that I gave it back to you or something like that, because maybe Emma had the collateral, but now it's been like 10 years, lapse of time, 3 years, whatever it is, it's through that lapse of time. I may have lost my perfection, okay? Or through removal to another state. This is where you get into, it gets tricky like with cars sometimes. Because you might have you might be perfected in one state with the car, but now all of a sudden Emma goes and moves to another state. What'll happen is then you have so many days to file in that state, so you get perfected there, so that way she doesn't sell the car, and then maybe because I have an interest in it, where I get notice to say, hey, here it is. So if she goes to another state and stuff, I would want to know that. Or I had Bella, you had her washer and dryer. You know, if she moves to another state and takes her washer and dryer, you'd want to know that because you want your stuff. So, but we could lose that there if she does move to the other state and you don't file with the union appropriate there. Special categories of automatic perfection exist, including purchase money security interest, I said, in consumer goods, and the credit sale of inventory and equipment. Once your debtor has paid the debt in full, so Emma pays you back, you no longer will have that interest done in the washer and dryer. She's paid it in full, okay? They can make a written demand for the termination statement. Because what it is you want them to show that they no longer have an interest in it. So once you paid in full, you might demand a letter saying, hey, do this termination statement. The termination statement will state that the security interest is no longer claimed. A lot of times too, if you guys have ever done mortgages, this class probably doesn't have, I'm thinking, a lot of homeowners. So how many are homeowners in here? Have you ever paid off a loan and then you always get a letter telling you what? This loan has been paid off. Have you ever done, do you know what I mean? Or you'll get things like this lien has been satisfied, or this cars, they'll do that too, where they'll no longer have a lien interest on your car. And they'll say, keep the paperwork for you, because when you finance your car, that they want them to know, like, hey, keep this in case when you go to sell their car, if there's any questions, at least you have the letter saying there's no longer a lien, even though it shows a lien, because they don't reissue sometimes new ones to you. They'll just say attach it to there. So if we get into that. Creditor, you will have 20 days from the receipt of the demands for the termination statement to go and file the termination statement. It is 1 month if it's consumer goods. So when they demand that termination letter, you have 20 days in which to go file it, and it's 1 month if we're dealing with our consumer goods. Let's talk about when we have 2 or more secured parties. Because I kind of used Tanisha and I, we were with the ring, right? And I said all of a sudden he gave you the ring, he gave me the ring, and then we brought Caleb in. We want to know who's the secured parties and who takes and those type of things. So what happens if we have 2 or more secured parties? Who is going to take? Who's going to be perfected first? All that. When we have 2 or more parties in the same collateral secure parties, we're going to have rules against for determining the priority of the conflicting interest. So the general rules for this are going to be as follows. A secured party takes priority over any unsecured party. That's our first rule. So if somebody's secured and one of us, I'll be the unsecured. I'll make you the secured. Is that okay? So if Tanisha's secured and I'm unsecured, but we always have the same interest in the collateral, she's going to take over me. That's our first general rule. Secured always over unsecured. Then what happens is we might get into the issue is, what if we have 2 secured? What if we're both secured now? Who takes?
Is it the percentage that you have in the secured?
It's going to be the first who what?
First 2 secured.
Yeah. Who was the first who had priority and filed, right? They're going to take. So when you get into that, it's going to be that priority. It's the first in time priority rule. If we have a perfected secured party priorities, they're determined by who was the first to perfect. We're both secured. Who perfected first? You or me? Or you? Because we brought you in too. Because what if you were first? Both of us could be what? Screwed.
Yeah.
And we're all secured. But let's say you are unsecured and we're both secured. We're both going to take over you.
Yeah.
But one of us, it's who filed first. Who was that perfected there. When we are looking at this too, this is the chart I was kind of looking for too. 659 is a nice chart that shows you priority. So it shows you secured versus secured. Priority is who's the first to attach. Unsecured versus secured, the secured. Perfected versus secured, it's who perfected first. What if we have a perfected versus a perfected? It's the first who perfected. Do you see where we're going? Is that first priority rule. So that's a good little chart. It helps you detail out who's doing that. There are exceptions to the general priority rules, and those include special priorities for inventory and purchases of consumer goods. So the exception you kind of see involves what? The PMSIs, those automatic perfections. You know, so if you have a PMSI in fixtures versus a perfected secured, the PMSI creditor, if perfected before the annexation or within the 20 days, they'll tell you then that priority there on how they do that. And again, this is a really good chart when you're doing it. What happens if our debtor sells the collateral to a third party? So, and sorry, Brad, I'm picking on you right now. Let's say Brad has the collateral that the three of us have interest in, but now he sold it to Bella. Because you still, what, had possession of it. Maybe we all did finance statement, like, do you get where we're going? Maybe one was automatic in that. But what happens if you sell it to a third party? Here, if the buyer buys the goods from the debtor in the ordinary course of business, the buyer is not subject to the creditor's security interest. Which means if you're a buyer in the ordinary course of business, you generally did what? You're what type of buyer? Think back to Law 1 for a second. We always said if you took in good faith for value without any knowledge of any what wrongdoing or plan. You see where we're going? That's what we're talking about. A buyer in the ordinary course of business. In the ordinary course of business, it's someone who's coming along purchasing this, and usually it's, we'll say the person who buy it in the ordinary course of business, good faith. You okay, Cable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just hacking up one.
So we get into that there. If for some reason the sale is not in the ordinary course of business and it's unperfected, the buyer takes the collateral without, okay, the security interest. If, however, the buyer doesn't take it in good faith, okay, gives value and knows of the security interest, then the buyer is going to be subject to that security interest. So that's why I say if you're a buyer in the ordinary course of business, then you kind of look and say, were they a BFP or not a BFP? You know, were they a bona fide purchaser in the ordinary course of business, or were they not a bona fide purchaser? Questions on that so far? Okay. Let's talk about upon default. Because what happens now if they don't pay? Our debtor didn't pay. I feel so bad. I've been picking on Brad. So I'll come back to Emma. Since Emma, you were my other person, right? Who is my daughter? What if she doesn't pay? Okay, she doesn't pay upon default. What happens? The secured creditor has the right to bring suit for payment or repossess the collateral. So, let's say, since I did the washer and the dryer for a minute, she doesn't pay. We said Bella has a right to either get it or repossess the collateral. Can Bella go break down her door and go take out the washer and dryer? No. She just can't go breach the peace and break down the door and stuff. So if the creditor repossesses the property, they have to do so without causing a breach of the peace. She cannot go and break down that door and get that washer and dryer. What'll happen though is what she'd have to do is she could go get the court order to say she's entitled to what? The washer and dryer, get the sheriff to go with you if you need to, because maybe you think she's going to be a real pain, you know, and not let you in, and you can do it. And now let me switch for a minute. Let's say Emma had the car, and Bella was the dealership that financed the car for her, because they also do the financing and everything. And she sees the car parked out in the street or in her driveway, and you don't pay. Can she go take the car? Yeah, she can hook that baby up to a tow truck and what? Have it hauled out because it's in the street. She's not breaching the peace because it's out in what? The open. Let's say she sees it in the garage and the garage has windows and stuff, and she said, can she break the garage to go get it? No, that's breaching the peace. But if it's parked right inside of the house, and we're going to assume right now when I say this that there's no cars all around it either, you know, where then she starts towing other cars out of the way. Do you know what I mean? We're talking she can easily hook it up and what? Hook it up and take it and go. Which is, it makes me think of that one movie right now. Two movies, actually. I think of a bunch of movies with the thing, but the one, Father Figures. And only because I saw that last summer for the first time. But I was thinking that where one guy had the car and stuff, and then you saw when they pulled up, you saw the guys pull up to come take the car because they were driving a car that needed to be repossessed, I think. So it was one of those things. So the creditor can retain or resell the collateral. So this is, let's going back when you ask, can we sell it? I can if you don't pay. but only if you don't pay. Like, I can't sell it before on you. Do you get where we're going? Because what if you pay me back? Then I really converted your property in a sense. But if you don't pay, and now I have possession of it, and I'm entitled to take it, I can turn around and sell it now to try and get what? My money back.
Does collateral normally, like, is it normally worth more than what you're asking to borrow or what you're requesting? So,
Or
like,
something of value that's equivalent to it.
Okay, so, because my first thought when we started talking about this was like, my buddy has a car he's trying to sell, and I was like, what if you just like took out a loan for like what you think the car is worth, or what you think you're gonna sell it for, and then you just were like, whatever, I'll let them repossess it, and then they'll have to sell it.
Well, and they might do what? Well, you're giving us the car, they'll look at the value and say, no, it's not worth, or something.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times like your house, when you're getting loans, because they know kind of what that's worth, what is it allowed for you to take in that value,
I can
the home
imagine.
equity lines. So usually a lot of times people, I know I'm a homeowner, you're a homeowner, right? You were a homeowner, I think the three of us, anyone else? Okay, a lot of times, sometimes we'll do our mortgage, and then we know we wanna do what? Stuff to the house, and you might do that home equity line. So then you have your mortgage, but the home equity line is because of what you have in your house. Like, let's say you bought it for $200,000, but you've already paid, we'll say $50,000 in. You might be able to get a home equity line to a certain percentage of that. Do you get where we're going?
Yeah.
Because then what they'll do is, both of them have then an interest in your house. First is your mortgage, but the equity line, you might use that interest of your house as collateral.
Because, yeah, I was just thinking, like, man, I'm pretty lazy. I don't want to go out and try to sell some stuff. So I'll just get a loan and then have them have to sell it.
Yeah.
That was my thought, but then, again, that doesn't really, you have to have interest in the item that
Well,
you're putting out for collateral.
kind of goes to the ring. Remember I said that's why you identify it?
Yeah.
Because I'm not gonna want a $2 ring
Mhm.
as collateral if I'm giving you $10,000.
Yeah.
Any questions so far? My goal was to have you guys work on a few questions. Is that okay? So I thought I'd break you guys into groups and give each group some. Are you guys good?
Yeah.
You guys are good? You guys are good? And you guys are good, right? I was just waiting for them because I heard them kind of finishing up. So you guys want to work on the problems? Who had number 2? One of you guys want to read it?
I'll read it. It says, in 1983, Carpet Contracts owned a commercial lot in the building which was operated as a retail carpet outlet. In April of 1983, Carpet Contracts entered into credit sales agreement with Young Electronic Sign Corp. YESCO for the purchase of a large electronic sign for the store. The cost of the sign was $113,000 with a down payment of $25,000 and 16 monthly payments of $2,100 each. In August 1985, Carpet Contracts agreed to sell the property to Interstate. As a part of the sale, Carpet Contracts gave an itemized list showing that $64,522 of the proceeds from the sale would be used to pay for the electronic sign. The property was transferred to Interstate and the Carpet Contract store continued to operate there, but it now paid rent to Interstate. In June 1986, Carpet Contracts asked YESCO to renegotiate the terms of the signed contract. YESCO reduced Carpet Contracts' monthly payments and filed a financial statement on the sign at the Utah Division of Corporations and Commercial Code. In December 1986, Interstate agreed to sell the property and the sign to Webb, who conducted a title search on the property, which revealed no interest with respect to the electronic sign. Interstate conveyed the property to Webb's. Carpet Contracts continued its operation, but was struggling financially and had not made its payments to YESCO for some time. By 1989, YESCO declared the signed contract in default and contacted the Webbs, demanding the balance due of $26,100. The Webbs then filed suit claiming YESCO had no priority as a creditor because its financing statement was not filed in the real property records where the Webbs had done their title search before purchasing the land. Was the financing statement filed properly form protection.
What'd you guys say?
I had kind of thought that it wasn't filed correctly, and they weren't, the first ones in the contract, so they are not able to, recover, because, number one, they didn't file anything, and then, they were a later party in the agreement, so that's what I think. I could be totally
Any
wrong.
additional thoughts, or any thoughts from the class? What do you guys think? No thoughts? Here, the answer was no. So the court held the sign was not equipment but a fixture. As a fixture, the proper place for filing of the security interest in it was the recorder's office where land records are located. The central filing at the Division of Corporations and Commercial Code was not sufficient public notice to give Yesco a perfected interest. The Webbs purchased the property in good faith without notice of any interest of Yesco. Yesco has no priority due to its failure to file in the proper location. I will tell you this case was decided, though, before revised Article 9, when they had done the revisions. So it was decided there. However, the filing requirements under revised Article 9 are central for all transactions except real property, which are filed according to state laws and the land records. This case, therefore, comes down to a question of fixtures and real property interest. When in doubt, it says file in both places. So, questions on that one? Who had, 5 I think is my next number, because I think I did 5, 9, and 13. So,
consider the following cases and determine whether the financing statements as filed would be valid under Article 9. Be sure to consider the standard of seriously misleading under the revised Article 9. A, in re Thriftway Auto Supply, the creditor used the debtor's corporate trade name, Thriftway Auto Stores, not its legal name, Thriftway Auto Supply Incorporated. We said that it would be valid.
Okay.
B, in re Mines Tire Co. Incorporated, the creditor used the name Mines Company Incorporated instead of Mines Tire Company Incorporated. We said that would not be valid. Mountain Farm Credit Service, ACA via Purina Mills Incorporated. The creditor filed the financing statement under Warren Killian and Robert Hetherington, DBA Grey Daw Farms, in a situation in which the two individuals were partners running Grey Daw Farms as a partnership. We said that would be valid. BT Lazarus & Co. v. Christifieds. The creditor filed a financing statement in the debtor's old name when prior to the filing, the debtor had changed its name from BTL Incorporated to Holland Manufacturing Incorporated. We said that would not be valid. In re Special Care Incorporated, the creditor failed to refile an amended financing statement to reflect the debtor's name change from Davidson Therapeutic Services Incorporated to Special Care Incorporated. We said that would not be valid. Industrial Machinery and Equipment Co. Incorporated versus Lapeer County Bank and Trust Co. The creditor filed the financing statement under the company's trade name, KMI Incorporated, instead of its legal name, Kohler Machine Incorporated. We said that would be valid. And First National Bank of Lakin versus Strong. Creditor filed the financing statement using the name Strong Oil Co. instead of the legal name E. Strong Oil Company, and we said that would be valid.
so really fast. And when he says valid and not valid, he was meaning valid because it's not seriously misleading, just in case the rest of you didn't catch what he was doing, and not valid because it was seriously misleading. For B, did you say that was?
We said no. We said it was not valid.
Okay, so you said it was seriously misleading.
For
B.
Mines Tire Co.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then F and G, you said those two were both valid. Okay. Does everybody agree with all their thoughts
I would.
on any of them? And I'm going to tell you what the court said for each of them. So the first one, the court held the financing statement was not seriously misleading because difference between two names was slight. Trade name could be found by using only slightly broader search on computer system. B, they said was not seriously misleading. That's what I wanted to see with yours. So the court found it not seriously. C, they said it was not seriously misleading where Dre Dawn Farms is a partnership consisting of these two individuals. D, it was also, this they found was seriously misleading financing statement. E was also a seriously misleading. The creditor must always file an amended financing statement when the debtor changes its name. F was the court held the use of trade name was seriously misleading. Generally, filing under the trade name of a debtor is ineffective. It needs to have the legal name or both. And then G, they differed with you guys. They said that was also seriously misleading. Now, that being given, all those answers that we've heard were given pre-Article 9. Okay, as were all the cases. Under revised Article 9, it's doubtful that any of these incorrect names would pull up under an electronic search. As a result, they would be seriously misleading there. And it says, just so you know, under revised Article 9, the burden, so we're going to emphasize the burden for a minute here to the parties. You have to be certain that the legal name is correct because there's no reasonable person or should have known standard with electronic filing. So do you see the difference? Because Article 9, remember I said revised allowed for electronic filing? This is they're saying you should have realized. And so they'll say a lot of them would be seriously misleading that it's not going to pull them up when you, yeah, there. Any questions? You guys had 9, right?
Benson purchased a new Ford Thunderbird automobile. She traded in her old car and used the Magnavox Employees Credit Union to finance the balance. The credit union took a security interest in the Ford. Subsequently, the Ford was involved in a number of accidents and was taken to a dealer for repairs. Benson was unable to pay for the work done. The dealer claimed a lien on the car for services and materials furnished. The Magnavox Employees Credit Union claimed priority. Which claim had priority? We said the credit union because they were established first.
Does everybody agree? Want to try again?
The dealership.
It's actually the dealer. The dealer who did the repair work has priority. A lien for repair or storage charges will prevail over any outstanding security interest. Such a common law lien will have priority over any other security interest in the collateral. The other thing, too, is a lot of times they still have possession of what? Yeah. Sometimes they still, because in order for you to get the car, sometimes you have to what? Pay for the repairs. So when they're in possession of it, they sometimes take over the other parties. There. 13.
A borrowed money from B and orally agreed that B had a security interest in the equipment that was standing in A's yard. Nothing was in writing and no filing of any kind was made. 9 days later, B took possession of the equipment. What kind of interest did B have in the equipment after taking possession of it? We said he had no interest because there was no security agreement, it wasn't in writing.
Everybody.
And there was no filing, so wouldn't that be a defective filing? Because, well, there was no filing at all, and you need to have like a signature and address.
Well,
I was
I
kinda
erased it because I had perfection could be one of 3 ways. We could do it by possession, automatic perfection, or doing the filing of a finance statement. So did we have perfection?
Say it, what was it for you? Automatic and what?
You had possession. You can have perfection by possession, automatic security interest, think PMSI for a minute, and then or filing a finance statement. You were shaking your head yes when I said something. Because I had asked that, what did I say? Was there perfection? And you were going, where was the perfection?
Possession of it.
Yeah. So here, there was perfection. When he took possession of the collateral, B acquired a perfected security interest with perfection dating from the time of the taking of the possession. The taking of possession also conferred perfection without filing. Thus, the security interest of B vested and became perfected at the same moment, the moment when B took possession of the collateral. Yeah. It was just one of the things there, because you guys focused on the filing statement, but we could also get it by what? Possession. Any questions on any of these so far? What I'd like to do, just because we're done earlier, can we do the first 2 chapters that we covered, like the very first class? So chapter 31 and 34, our bankruptcy one, and that. That way, at least if you guys want to go back and look at them, do you know what I mean? And I'll give you guys time to kind of, because we just finished consumer today, and then we did today's, I'll give you time to work on those too, just to make sure if you guys hadn't done it and we're waiting till lectures. So, Brianna, I'm going to start with you. If you'll do the first one.
The study one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then we'll just go down the L shape and then go across the row. So once it gets to Pa, we'll go over to Bella, and then up the row. How's that work?
Okay. The right of, so, applies when a surety has paid the debt in full. That's true.
Yep.
Did I say it too low?
No, you're fine. It was
Oh.
true. Did everybody hear her? No, whichever one of you two, because it's going to go down your row and then to the back to there. So,
Okay, okay. Suretyship is governed by the UCC.
yes, and I'll tell you. I'll correct my answer here for a minute. Suretyships is governed by UCC. It's not only governed by UCC sometimes because it's also governed by common law. So if I had said it's only governed, make that a false statement. So,
Extending credit to a debtor may not be consideration for the undertaking of a surety. It's false.
yes, that is false. Because it may be consideration for the undertaking. 4?
The issuer of a letter of credit is usually a bank. That's true.
Yep. 5?
Generally, the statute of frauds requires that contracts of guarantee be in writing. That's false.
Generally, it does. Yeah.
Thought
There
it was
you-
suretyships.
Suretyships are definitely required. Absolute guarantees follow suretyships, so those also have to be in writing. Because that one is treated like a suretyship if it's an absolute guarantee, and then you're better off just having the guarantee also in what? Writing.
Right, got it.
Yeah. 6, we're coming across.
Suretyship, guarantee, and indemnity contracts all create a relationship by which one party becomes responsible for the debt or undertaking of another party. True. False.
False. Suretyships and guarantees take the debt of another party. Indemnities are different, we said, because you're actually paying somebody for the loss of something. 7? Go ahead, Emma.
A letter of credit must be in writing and must be signed by the issuer. I put true.
Yep. 8.
Another term for the surety's right of indemnity is contribution. True? False?
False.
An absolute guarantee creates the same obligation as a suretyship. I think that would be true.
Yep. 10.
By law, a letter of credit never can extend it for a period of more than 5 years. False.
Yep. If you guys remember, there's no like time period there. 11.
Insolvency of the principal debtor discharges the surety. True? False?
False. That is false because the debtor is agreeing to take what? Or, sorry, the surety is agreeing to do what? The debt of another, right? They're going to pay. So the principal debtor, even though it doesn't automatically discharge who? The surety. Because you can go after what? One or the other. We'll come back to your guys' side right now and we'll just go through the same way. So 12.
When a surety pays debt that it is obligated to pay, it automatically acquires the claim and the rights of the creditor through, I put C.
Yep, it is. Subrogation.
In a guarantee contract, the obligor is called a. Isn't it? The guarantor.
guarantor of payment creates I put D, an absolute guarantee.
Yep. 15.
Which of the following is correct concerning surety shipping guarantee? C.
Want to try again?
B.
Yeah. B's the best answer there. Because you're agreeing to pay the debt of another. And indemnity is different because indemnity is just paying the loss. What we get into, the difference between suretyships and guarantee is who do you go after first? Who's liable first? 16? Yeah.
A surety that has made payment of a claim for which it was liable as a surety is entitled to which of the following from the principal? As A.
Yep.
If there are two or more sureties and one pays more than its proportionate share of the debt, the surety has the right against the co-sureties known as D, contribution.
Yep. 18?
Which of the following contract defenses cannot be raised as a defense against suretyship? I put A.
Want to try again?
D.
Yeah. D, the surety may raise any defense that the party to an ordinary contract may raise. 19?
A letter of credit, I put A.
Yep. Is an advance arrangement for financing. And 20?
Typically, there are how many parties to a letter of credit? I would say 2.
Want to try again?
3.
Yeah. So B is 20. Any questions on those so far? So let's go over, sorry, I gotta fix my, to chapter 34. Go ahead.
Jurisdiction over the bankruptcy proceedings is vested in the federal district courts. True.
Yep. 2?
The debtor automatically obtains an order of release if she files a voluntary bankruptcy petition. False. True.
That's true. And then I'm going to stay on your side and we'll work our way back. So will you do 3 again and then we'll just go down?
An involuntary bankruptcy case is commenced by creditors filing a petition with a bankruptcy court. True.
Yes.
The creditor filing an involuntary petition always must be owned at least 17,000 of secured debt. True? False?
False. And this is going to really depend on whether you have one, like fewer than 12 or more than 12. The magic number I know is at least 15,000. Yeah. Because if you have less than 12, then the one person has to at least hit that amount. If it's 3 or more, then 3 of them. 5? Yeah.
If the debtor is not paying debts as they become due, the debtor may be vulnerable to having an involuntary petition and bankruptcy filed against it. I would think that's true.
Yep.
The trustee in bankruptcy is selected by the debtor. I put true. False.
False. Debtor doesn't pick his trustee. The court kind of does it. Allocates who gets it. 7?
The trustee may set aside transfers of debtors' property made within 6 months of the filing of the petition if the transfer is made to defraud creditors. I put false.
Right. 8?
Bankruptcy law does not regulate the manner in which the assets of the debtor are distributed because that is left to the trustee's discretion. True. False.
False. So 8 is false.
In a bankruptcy case, after all creditors have been paid, any balance is turned over to the debtor. That's true.
Yep. 10?
A discharge will release a debtor from liability for willful and malicious injury to the property of another. That's false.
Right. 11,
Proceedings under chapter 7 are A.
yep, liquidation proceedings. 12,
For purposes of determining the number of creditors filing an involuntary petition, petitioning creditors may include B.
yeah. The best answer was B there. Only creditors who have an unsecured claims of at least 15,325, solely if there are less than 12 creditors. 13,
Where the debtor has 17 creditors, how many must sign an involuntary petition? I put 3.
Yes.
So C.
C. We'll come back across, so Amira, it'll be you, and then we'll come back down. So 14,
That's me.
yeah,
Debtor is presumed to be insolvent and during one number of days immediately preceding the date of the filing of a bankruptcy petition. That'd be A.
want to try again?
C.
Yeah. C, 90 days. 15,
Which of the following debts is not dischargeable in a bankruptcy? A.
want to try again?
C.
Yeah, C. Judgments for willful and malicious injuries. 16,
Oh, the status of a trustee in a bankruptcy proceeding is best described as the prosecutor of the debtor,
want to try again?
the protector, the defender, the successor.
Yeah. B, the successor of the debtor. 17,
Some of the types of bankruptcy proceedings are D, 7, 11, and 13.
yep. 18,
A blank bankruptcy is when the debtor files a petition with the bankruptcy court. That'd be a voluntary receipt.
yep. 19,
An automatic stay.
B.
want to try again?
C.
Yep. Prevents creditors from taking action against the debtor. And 20,
Claims for wages, salaries, or commissions have priority in the payment of unsecured debts over. A.
want to try again?
C.
Yeah, it's C. The claims arising for contributions to employee benefit plans. Any questions on those? We'll hold off on the other 2 chapters, like I said, that way because we finished up material today. You guys can go back over them.
Good luck with today's lesson.